Hi there, we are back with a new amazing video for you. It is based on remote config in Firebase. Most of you may not know about remote config, but it is a really life-saving service by Firebase. From the text on the main screen, you can see here it writes customize and experiment with app behavior using server-side configuration parameters and feature flags, which means you can set some configurations, some parameters here on your Firebase dashboard, and whenever you want to change it, they will be dynamically changed from this dashboard and will be reflected in the app without the need of pushing a new build for these small changes. So amazing, isn't it? Okay, but before diving to that, if you haven't subscribed my channel, please make sure you like, share and subscribe my channel, and don't forget to hit that bell icon as well. Ta-da! So let's get started. Here I will tap on create configurations. Here I will make some parameters, like if I create a parameter name and give it some value, like my name, it is Shah Wali and Khan as well, and save it. I have created a parameter here with the key value pair. I can publish these changes and now I can access it in my app using the APIs provided by Firebase. And if I want to change it, I will just change it from here. It will be reflected in my app even if my app is in production, so I won't need to push that build again and again. So it is really amazing and life-saving feature. So let's get started with the real work. I have set up a basic Flutter project and connected it to the Firebase project as well. And from here in the pubspec.yaml file, here you need this Firebase Remote Config plugin for it. And here the Firebase code, it is needed for every Firebase project initialization in Flutter. So add this in your pubspec.yaml, hit the control save and install the dependency. Now here you can see on the screen, we have this basic app setup where we have the app bar for remote config. Then we have a greeting message, welcome to remote config. Then we have created three cards that shows my data or user data, in which we have the name, age and hobby. So we are displaying these three types of data. Now we will be fetching that data from the remote configuration feature of Firebase. Here we can set these parameters and we can access it in our app. So if in future we want to change it, we can easily change it from the dashboard without the need of code changes. That's the power of it. So let's get started. For that, here in the state, I will create the init state method. I will override it, and here I will initialize the remote configuration. Sorry, here I will need to create a remote config instance first. So let's create an instance, give it a name, remote config, and assigns it the singleton, which is Firebase remote config dot instance. And now we have the instance of our remote configurations. We can utilize it to set some default values in all the different operations. So firstly, what I will do is I will use this remote config instance to set defaults. Defaults are set, here we pass a map. We will set default values in case our data has not been fetched yet, so this data is going to be shown. So let's give it Shauli Khan name, and then give it an age like 21, then the hobby, that will be volleyball. And I have set up defaults for the remote config instance. As you can see, it is a future, so let's use await. One thing we have to do, we can't use set state in the init state, so we will need to create a new method for it, which will be init, and it will be remote config, and here it will be an async, and we will be doing our setup here. Then later here we will call the init remote config in the init state, right? So we have done which is the default setup for our data. And then after that we will be doing some configurations for our remote config service. Sorry, remove this, and I will use the remote config instance, and here I will do some settings. So let's set the configuration settings, and it will be of type remote config settings. Here we need to set a fetch timeout. Let's set it for 10 seconds. Sorry, we will pass duration. Duration object will provide duration, set it to 1 second. Sorry, not 1 second, we need to provide 10 seconds, because in 1 second, if the timeout in 1 second the data has not been fetched, so it will be halted, the operation will be halting, and we won't get any data. Here we also need to pass the duration as well, which will be in seconds. Let's give it 10 seconds. It is the duration after which the changes needs to be reflected on the app. So we have set some basic configurations for remote config as well. So configurations, and then after that we will reload the sorry, we will activate the remote config. We need to activate it before using it, so I will use remote config to fetch the data and activate. So it will firstly fetch the data, and then it will activate remote config so that we can use it in our app. We have done the basic setup, but during this period we need to add a loading as well. So in order to show a loading indicator, it will be false by default. And here, when the init remote config is called, we will call set state, and its loading will be set to false. And whenever it completes, its loading needs to be set to true again. Sorry, it will be set to false here, and here it will be true. So when it is true, the time during which the data is being fetched, so we show a loading indicator here. So here, instead of this padding and that stuff, I will use this loading. Sorry, let's remove this const, and now let's use the loading. Where is that loading? Why can't I see is loading? So here I will copy it, is loading, and I will use the circular progress indicator here. If it is set to true, so we need to show a indicator here, and then when the data is being fetched, we want to fetch the data from the remote configurations. Okay, so for that, here we will use the remote config instance, which is remote config dot, we have the get string to get the parameter for a name, because it is of type string. Remove this const, and you can see here we have our data that we will be fetching. Similarly, here we have the age, so we will use this. Let's copy this and use it here for getting the age. It will be get int. Sorry, there is a problem with that, we will fix that. Get int, and it will be age. We need to remove this const as well. This const will also be removed. Let's paste it here as well. Here it will be the hobby. We haven't set these configurations yet, so we will also set these as well. And we have done our setup for remote configurations. Here, whenever the screen is loaded, firstly the default will be set, then we will set some configurations, and after that data will be fetched and activated. Then here the data will be accessible through using these parameters. But here we only have this name parameter. Let's add these two as well. So here let me add another parameter for age, and let's give it a type of number. It will be, let's call it 30. Save it, and add another parameter for hobby, and give it a value badminton this time, and save it. Now I need to publish these changes, so publish. The parameters have been published now. Now come here, let's build the app again. Now our app has been built and data has been fetched from that remote configurations. Let's restart again and see. So here the data has been fetched. So if we want to listen to any changes from here, we will change the data. Here let's change it to 40 and see if we are able to observe the change or not. Publish change, and let's see. It has been now set to 40, and let's see if we have changes here. Oof, no changes here. Let's restart the app, and data has been fetched, and you can see now it has been updated, but we are updating it manually. We need to listen to these changes. So here whenever this is complete, we also want to listen to the any changes in remote configuration, so that to update the data in our app at a runtime. So for that we need a listener. I will use the remote config, and here we have a listener with the own configuration updated. This is a stream offered by this library for remote configuration, and we can use this to listen to changes. And here we have this callback. Whenever there's a change in configuration, this callback is going to be triggered. So we will do all handling here. So when there's a change and this callback is triggered, I want to fetch the details again. So for that, I will use remote config dot activate. I will activate to fetch the new data, and it will be an async operation. So I will also put await here, and after that I will call set state in order to let our app know that we have updated the data. The remote config now have updated data, so the data here is also updated. I will save it, and when I restart my app, so we have the data that is already being stored there. Now if I go to here, and here I change the name or hobby, let's change the hobby, let's set it to cricket, and click on save, publish changes, and see if these are reflected here. It's badminton. Let's see if the changes are reflected here. Now you can see the data has been updated dynamically. So that's the power remote configuration. And other real world scenario can be like if you have an API key in your app, and that is being used for all the communication with the server. In case you find out that it has been compromised, so you can store it in the remote configuration, and if it is compromised, you can generate a new key for yourself and directly set it from the remote configurations, so that the changes are being done dynamically, and you don't need to push a new build for this small change. So that's the power of remote configurations, and we can use it for a lot of purposes. It is a very life-saving feature. So that's it for today's video. Stay tuned for new amazing upcoming videos. Goodbye.